our next presentation is going to be held by 2 lectures at one time. So Jim Kimball and Alexandrov, they are both going to talk about one of the most valuable things in every company, and this is the teams. So Jim is from Boston, but he's living here for the last couple of months to be the head of a company called HedgeServ. So please welcome Jim Kimball and Alex Alexandrov.
Hello? Hello? Is this on? Can you hear me? Yes. Excellent. My name is Jim Kimball. I've been at HedgeServ for about 15 years now. I work with our teams all around the globe to try to help them to get better.
And I'm Alex Alexandrov. I'm a software engineer at HedgeServ. And I've been here in Sofia building a great team, working with some awesome developers for the past 6 years.
And we're going to talk to you about enabling great teams.
Where do you start? So someone might have made you already a team lead. Hopefully you know why. But I tell you what I feel that a team lead or someone who can enable a great team needs to have as a prerequisite before you even start our talk. And the first thing is you need to love what you do. And you hear that all the time. But you really have to love it, because what we're talking about, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen this week, this month. It's going to happen probably over a prolonged period of time. And unless you love what you do, maybe, chances are you're going to fail. So I'm a software engineer. I'm on a software engineering team, so I got that covered. I love coding. The second thing is you have to work really hard. And everybody works hard, obviously. People that are here work hard. But what I mean hard, I mean very, very hard in a prolonged period of time. And that requires a lot of effort, dedication. You have to be persistent. And during that time, you kind of you're always there, you're working hard, you become the go-to person on every team. So you establish yourself as a leader, and that would help you enable the team really perform and work great. And in general, you guys are all tech guys, so where you start, you want to learn something new, you go to the web, you download a program, that compiles, you run it, it's done. You have something there already. Then the next thing is you go in, add a few lines, then you add your logic and it's working, and you compile and run, and then quickly you have a quick turnaround on your money. Working with people and teams is not that easy. There is no manual. There's nothing that I can tell you that you go in and follow these steps and they will make you enable your team to work great tomorrow. But what I'll share is my experiences of what helped me really create this manual for you guys to follow on. So
about 20 years ago, that was the first time I was ever put in charge of an actual team. And I truly had no idea what to do. Someone mentioned imposter syndrome earlier. This wasn't imposter syndrome. This was I actually had no idea what to do. And I happen to have a copy of this book, XP Explained by Beck. Has anyone read it? Oh, nice. One of the things I really liked about it is that Beck gives some abstract concepts, a little bit of theory, and then gives some very practical examples. Hey, go do these things. And if you do these things, then you will be successful.
And accidentally, extreme programming was where I started really growing my career as a team lead. I had this job posting, and it was talking about something software engineer and XP, and I'm a Mac guy, and then the recruiter was like, oh, this is cool. I was like, no, I'm not doing Windows XP. And then he talked me into that. This is something else, something different. You should try it. So I go to an interview, and they warn me, prepare yourself to be here for the whole day. So I go in, and at HedgeServ, Jim had already installed the usage of the agile methodology called extreme programming that I never heard of before. And I go in, and throughout the day, I paired with every single member on the team. Every single member on the team. Even I paired at lunch. I went with somebody to have lunch. And throughout that process, we had some failing behavior. We wrote some tests for it. We fixed it. That kept going the whole day. After 10 hours, I felt the interview feeling great. And you know, and that was when I realized something different. You must do something different in a different place to really enable people like me who are good coders. I love what I do. Really perform well.
And so what we're going to do today is we're going to take a page out of Beck's book. I'm going to talk about some abstract concepts, a little bit of theory.
And you know, I'll basically put in perspective of what I've done here in Bulgaria for the past 6 years.
All right, so as we're talking and saying these various things, you might be saying to yourself or the person next to you, well, isn't that stuff obvious? Why am I here? Why shouldn't I go out and enjoy the sun? To us, that's a sign of success. If the things that we say make sense and they sound obvious, then that means it's going to be very easy for you to actually do them. Right? And it's going to be easy for other people to grasp that these things are worthwhile. So, I've heard at least 2 prior talks today talk about communication. Communication is one of the 4 things that we're going to hit on today to try to help you have great teams. So, where I start with communication is the Satir interaction model. The person on the left is Virginia Satir, person on the right is Jerry Weinberg. Has anybody ever heard of either of these 2 people? All right. Virginia Satir was a family therapist in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. She really revolutionized family therapy, and one of the things that she did was she kind of broke down how interactions actually happen and was able to describe them in a way to help people to communicate better. Jerry Weinberg was a computer scientist, and he took a lot of Virginia Satir's theories and incorporated them into his books on how to be a good technical leader. I learned the stuff I learned about communication from Jerry Weinberg. So the Satir interaction model, as described by Jerry Weinberg, has 4 steps: intake, meaning, significance, and response. These things happen with every interaction, so even though when you're talking, the communication happens in fractions of a second, you're actually going through each of these steps, and understanding that you are going through these steps can help make you be a better communicator. First step is intake. Intake, I'm talking, you hear the words that I'm saying, you see how I'm acting towards you, you see the expression on my face. That all contributes to the information that you take in as I'm talking. A common thing when 2 people are talking is, while, say, I'm talking to Alex, Alex is thinking about what he's going to say next, right? Instead of really paying attention to me, he's like, okay, I want to make this point. So key part of intake is focus. Pay attention, actually listen to what the person is saying. Another tool you can use when you're communicating with people is after they say something, you can repeat back. You can say, okay, what I heard you say was this. And that gives the other person an opportunity to say, no, I didn't say that at all. And you can start over. After intake comes meaning. Meaning is where you've taken the information from intake, and then you assign meaning to it. So you see me, I'm talking, my face is getting red, I'm yelling, I'm pointing. You say, oh, Jim is mad. Jim's mad at me. Right? When you're in the meaning phase, one of the things that you can do, if, say, someone says something to the effect of, oh my God, everybody hates this conference. Right? You may, okay, well, what did you see or hear that makes you say that kind of thing, as a way of getting some clarification as you're trying to assign meaning to your intake. After meaning comes significance. Significance is all about feelings, it's about emotion. As we talked before, if you attribute meaning to me as I'm angry at you, well then you have an emotion associated with that. You might get angry at me, right? Or you might be afraid, right? You have a variety of emotions that happen as you're dealing with processing the information. And the emotion is important because that feeds your response, right? When you think about, okay, well, what are you going to say back to me? So you have this emotional feeling, but then you apply rules to it, right? So say your reaction is that you're afraid, right? But you have a rule, like, I can't show people that I'm afraid. I'm a man, I can't be afraid, right? So it means you're going to change your reaction from what you really mean and what you really want to say to something else, right? And that means that you're not having a true conversation. That's what congruence means. Congruence means that what you say is actually what you intend to say, right? And that's very important because if you can't have a congruent conversation, then the entire conversation is meaningless.
So this is a real nice theory. It's broken down of the different stages, and you can follow it. But the way I apply it is, I don't think about it. It just happens for me, and that is because the first step is, on my team, the intake step is really done face-to-face. There's nothing better than having two people or 3 or 4 of the whole team communicate face-to-face. Some of the best engineers, though, are introverts by nature. So they would prefer to hide behind a computer screen or just like different forms of chat or email. And in order to unleash their real ideas, to get their emotion, because people are passionate about what they do. I'm definitely passionate about what I do. So in order for you to really understand and get my emotion, understand the significance of what I'm trying to tell you, email and chat is not good enough. Companies would spend an enormous amount of time wasted really going back and forth, playing ping pong with emails and chat and incident channels and so on. And what I prefer doing is when there's something that I'm working on, whether it's a production issue or just a story that I'm picking up like a checkbox there that I have to add, I grab the person. I grab the developer, I grab the QA, I grab the business guy, I call them. If they're not next to me, I call them. I don't even call them on the phone. I call them on video call. If it's not video, if it's not face-to-face, it's not good enough for me. I can't express everything. And so 9 out of 10 times during that process, we resolve the issue just by talking. Also, if we are fighting on something that is not really resolvable easily, but someone else fixed it 2 months ago. They hear us talking about it, and they're like, hey, I fixed that already. Don't worry about it. So most of the times we resolve the issue or we pave a way for the resolution when we are done talking. So that said, always follow with an email of what we did, what the issue was, how we're going to resolve it. And key here is CC the team. I get real mad when somebody sends me an email just to me or just to me and Jim. I just don't like that. I send the email back and have them CC the team. We're a team and everything is open. There's no secrets here. What we're talking about needs to be known by everybody. And what this does is, so let's say a new guy gets on the team and he is a witness of something we just did yesterday and we broke some code. And we shoot an email to the whole team. Everybody knows that we screwed up yesterday. Well, by shooting this email and the resolution afterwards, he feels, well, that's okay to make mistakes. We'll do that tomorrow. That's okay. Everybody would know. We'll fix it. And that's key. Face-to-face communication and follow up with an email and all the channels, hip chat, email, whatever.
So, okay, that's great. You've got this notion now of I can be a better communicator. But the thing is that in order for you to actually express what you think, you need to be safe. Right? And so the second thing we're going to talk about is safety and how to establish safety on a team.
And so when we're talking about safety, we are talking about people need to feel safe to express yourself. It's real easy for me to tell you, "Oh, go talk to people." But some people they're just afraid. They just got on a team. They don't know. They don't know how to take it. They're hard to admit what they've done yesterday. And in order for them to free them up to speak, you need a safety environment. So we're talking about safety to express yourself. You need to, in order to get the best value out of the best engineers, they need to feel free to express themselves. They shouldn't hold anything back. And how do you create that kind of environment? Well,
we use values, principles, and practices, right? So what we do is that, you remember there's rules that you apply. So what we try to do is we try to give our team members a different set of rules to apply when they're engaging. And the way we do that is by defining values, principles, and practices in advance, right? When we're first setting up the team, we meet, we talk about values, principles, and practices. First, values. Values are what is important to us. They're very generic. They help the team to just say, okay, well, what do we actually think?
And as you can see, these are very generic. I mean, you apply this to your family, to your friends, to everybody. Really, your team is your new family. You spend more time with them than anybody else, really, at least in my case. So we set up these real basic values, and the list is much bigger in our case, on my team. I'll give you some examples here of a few that I want to talk about, but in general, you'll see our list later on. We'll show you the whole list, and you can use it, whatever. But let's just talk about a few of them. Let's talk about teamwork. So teamwork is a very generic, reused term. What does it mean? On my team, that means that we do everything together. And if you've ever had any contact with me, you know that I really mean it. Interviews are done. You pair with everybody. We sit with me. The new guy who started yesterday, we have him interview the guy who's applying today. So he just joined yesterday. He doesn't even know our environment. He doesn't know he doesn't even have his machine maybe set up. But he would pair with the new guy because there has to be a cultural fit. And we make him part of the team day one. Day one, so also teamwork is related to, we have committed to pairing. So there's a production issue. Jim started yesterday. I've been here 10 years. Production issue. Usually what happens is I'll take care of it, Jim. You just set up your environment in IntelliJ, get this plugin installed. Instead, I get Jim dragged in with me, and we do production issues right with him. So the new guy on the team, he gets empowered day one. He understands that he can contribute day one, and that's the meaning of teamwork. Another one, let's say, honesty. So honesty, I tell my kids to be honest, not lie to me, and so on, but that's not what we mean here. What we mean here is we're honest to each other about everything we do. And if you listen to my team from the outside, what did these guys say? Some of the stuff that happens and it's heard during our conversations is brutally honest. And what we do is, when we are honest to each other about the mistakes, about the issues that we have, and how we deal with them, we cut through a lot of the crap and political stuff, and we just focus on getting things done. So we're brutally honest to each other.
After values comes principles. Principles are what do we believe? They're a little more context specific to a particular team.
So you're working on something, and you need a set of rules and guides, and that's what these principles are for. They basically define, what to do in certain situations, and it's clear for us what we do and what they mean. And our list is much bigger. We'll show you the full list later. But I'll talk about so 90%. Well, most places I worked before, 90% of developers were 90% done with all their work. And that was me, I was guilty of that as well. So on my team, one of the principles we follow is the only measure of progress is running software. So what does that mean? What it means is that if somebody asks you, what's the status on something, we basically have 3 statuses. I haven't started at all. I haven't done anything. I'm working on it, and I'm done. So here, that seems obvious, but what we mean by done means I've checked in my code, I checked in my unit tests, they pass, I deploy them to the QA box, and I ran the acceptance test, they also pass. So the business guy, the QA who's working with me with this, he knows when I say I'm done, that means he can go onto the QA box and test it. He can run it. So done means running software, runnable software. So he can go in and really test this. Not I checked in. Usually before everywhere else I worked, done meant I checked in, or I'm 90% checked in. So by having that principle, we eliminate the 90% problem.
After values, principles comes practices. So practices are now, what are the things that the team actually does? How do they work?
These are practices as you would develop these, you would change them, they're very fluid. They're not constant. Values and principles are very, very static, where practices are fluid. You would see what works for your team. Does daily stand-up work? No, yes. Does small stories work? You have to figure it out for yourself. And this list would change. As you work, we started with extreme programming. We stole a lot of stuff from back. And then we adjusted it. We're not in a cult. We don't follow somebody in a crazy fashion. But we pick our own and see what works, and we're honest with each other. Well, this doesn't work. We're not going to do this anymore. So let's see. I want to talk about, on my team, pair and rotate pairs. So we've committed and I truly believe in this. I'm always better when I'm pairing. I hear my thoughts, and then sometimes I could be pairing with a junior guy, but just hearing myself talk, it makes me, no, what am I talking about? So pairing for us is key. We've committed to it. We think it makes a better team. It enables everybody on the team to just be better. A common thing that I always use is, in order for you to work on my team, you have to not only be able to teach people, but you need to be able to be taught. And pairing creates that environment. And during the pairing process, people earn respect for you. You code, you see what they do, they go back, and then there's another practice, refactor aggressively. So, everybody refactors, but we have committed we're going to do that. And if you're, like me currently, working on a 10-year-old code, which has probably like 20,000 lines of code. Some stuff is old. It's not very pretty. The business guy wants something done today. So what the business guy wants you to do is you go in, you fix this little thing that he wants, and then you get out. And that's the safest thing to do, right? We have agreed that we're going to do this. We're going to deliver the value for the business guys. But then we're going to go back and refactor. And if we saw an opportunity, obviously, if it was something like, didn't need to, we wouldn't do it. But we have committed that we are going to go back and refactor. And which sounds good. However, because the team, I'm talking about the entire team, the QA, the business guys know about this, the business guys will not come back and say, no, don't refactor anything. Because usually that's the response. No, Alex, just don't touch anything, please. We know that we refactor. So we saw some bad code. We discuss, what could come out of it, how it could be tested, and we would go in and refactor. So these practices, you should come up with your own. These are ones that you should, on a daily basis, you should figure out what works and what doesn't for you. An example of what didn't work for us is we used to estimate stories. Beginning of iteration, we go through the stories list, we look at them, 2 points. 2 points was a day worth of 2 people pairing, and then after a few months, we realized there was a huge waste of time. None of these stories were precisely, measured, and then priorities changed. So something that was, needed to be done quickly with 7 points actually was not even necessary, and it was actually at the end we end up because of other development was only like a point. So they were not precise. So we said we're not going to estimate, and I'll show you later what we do instead.
All right. So Alex just shared with you some examples of some of the practices that his team does. I'd like to talk a little bit about some practices I try to share with other teams. It comes from Peter Senge's 5th discipline, where he talks about how teams interact with each other, and specifically how teams can get it wrong, where conversations and questions can quickly escalate into arguments, and you can come out of a meeting without having concluded anything. Senge says that's because teams confuse dialogue and discussion. Dialogue is about understanding. So questions asked when the team is in dialogue are about understanding. So now, if you ask me a question, I have a rule. I understand that you want to understand. So when you say to me, what were you thinking when you did that? Right? Like instead of getting defensive and trying to fight back, I can say, okay, you're asking to understand. You really want to know, what was I thinking? Right? And kind of having this notion that, okay, we're in dialogue, questions are about understanding, they help a whole team to get to the point where they actually understand the problem, which then allows them to have discussion. Discussion is about identifying the best solution. And in discussion, you do need critique. You do need to poke holes, to the point where we actually have a practice called ritual dissent that says that even if the whole team agrees, right, you go through dialogue, everybody understands, like, yep, great, let's do it. Ritual dissent says somebody on that team has to argue it. You can't just walk out of there all happy and agreeing. Someone has to take the other side. And it really helps vet a solution. Rule of 3, similar practice. This is a Weinberg thing. He says, hey, okay, when you're coming up with solutions, it's pretty easy to say, okay, well, we could either do A or B. Right? Rule of 3 says you have to have at least 3 solutions. Again, forces the team to think a little more about the problem.
And the way I apply this daily is during the daily stand-up, we have details about what we're working on. And our stand-ups obviously include the developers, and the business guys, and the QAs. And a lot of developers wouldn't go into details. They know everything. What does Bob need to know about how I'm doing this? And that attitude needs to be broken down. It needs to be just worked out, where developers need to understand, and that starts with me, I explain what I'm doing, by giving details to everybody. So not only everybody on the team hears about what I'm going to do and the exposures, but the business guys actually know to question me. And that's not usual. Usually technical guys, don't question me because you don't know what you're, but I allow them to question me and we discuss it. And then once I've given them all the information and everybody on the team understands what we are trying to achieve, what we're trying to change, what we're trying to improve, then there's a discussion. And in the discussion, obviously the tech guys have the heavier say, but the business guys and the QA is always involved. And unless you give them the information, unless you let them understand, explain to them, be patient, there's no way you can have a possible productive discussion and something nice can come out of it. And also, by having this, you actually explain not just to the business guys, but everybody on the team, someone who's on vacation or something, you give everybody an opportunity to catch up, understand what's going on, what are you working on, because tomorrow he might be working on the same thing. My team is like 25 people, so it involves a lot of communication. And being able to not just focus on discussion, but allow people to have a dialogue and understand your point, it's great to be followed with a discussion and a better solution. So, I promised you I'll show you something. So 6 years ago, I was already working at HedgeServ, we were doing extreme programming, and I was coming over here. I didn't have much to come with, and I said, I'm working for a great environment, great team. What is it that defines that so I can bring over here and start over? And we were in a room with a whiteboard, 2 whiteboards, and I was there with Jim and a couple other guys, and we said, let's write down what we already value. Let's write down our principles, and this is a copy of ours. This is 6 years old from the board in New York. Just going to mention number 8. That's my favorite. Fun. That's what we value. If you ever work with me, it's always fun, even when production's down.
So, Alex showed the whiteboards. That's the session we did with him. This is just another example with another team that I worked with. We just got everyone in a room, put the big stickies up on the wall, and wrote down, what do we think is important? What do we believe? And if you want to know, okay, how can I do this with my team? There are techniques. You can go on the web, and there are techniques you can use. Alternatively, you can just steal some. Like Alex said, that's what we did. We took Beck's. He lists values, principles, and practices. We took them, we wrote them, and we started working with them.
And just to add, we really encourage you to do this. If you haven't done it, do it because it just creates a visibility, and that safety, it counts on that. Somebody can go and say, look at this whiteboard, this is what we do, day one. And it's really cool it's empowering to just write them down because this is what you go by.
All right, so you know how to communicate, you have a safe environment for your team. Now, what are you going to do with them? All right, so your team needs a goal. Nothing.
That was supposed to be funny, but
no, it wasn't. So third thing we're going to talk about is goals, right? Where kind of we got the theory around our goals comes from mission intent. This is Stephen Bungay. He wrote a book called Art of Action, and in it he talks about how the military is able to organize the vast machinery that makes up a military organization towards a common goal. And you'll find a lot of times, like Alex was talking about, how you pick and choose stuff from what you might read or what you might hear. And in the case of mission intent, there were a couple things that we picked out that we want to share as well. First one is when you're talking about goals, there are multiple time horizons associated with a goal. And the way we think about it is we have a strategic goal, which runs 6 months, could be longer. This is generally defined by a product organization. Can be pretty vague, something like, hey, we want to incorporate machine learning onto our platform. Inside of a strategic goal, we have operational goals. For us, they run generally around a month. At this point, they're owned by the development team, get a little tighter, a little better defined. And then inside of the operational goals, you have tactical goals, which for us run around a week. Very clear, owned entirely by the team.
So my team really owns the operational and tactical part, And the business guys really own the operational. They figure out what's priority. They can see the bigger picture. They share with us. It's public. We use Jira, whatever. Everybody uses some kind of tool like that. But so we own it. And developers, where I sit, we own the 1 week. Actually, 1 week is too long, but day and 2 days. So we own it. We have a sense of ownership. And what we do is we know we go in and we got to figure out what to do next. We don't go to the CEO or even the bigger guys. We go to our team. And the way we do this, earlier I told you that we don't do estimates. So what we do is we go to the business guys who own the whole operational curve there, and we say, what's the story with the most value? I don't go to Jira. I just go to the business guys. I pick up the video call. If it's a guy next to me, I drag him in. I say, what is the thing with the biggest value that I can deliver today? And I own that. I know it's my responsibility. I do it. We are very proactive. We volunteer for all kinds of stuff. You see something coming in, you say looking, immediately, without even knowing what it is. I just go in. I know somebody needs something. So this tactical section, you have to create a sense of ownership, and you have to prioritize using the knowledge and what the business guys have already reordered. Within the month, things can change. Priorities can change. Everything can change. So we go after the item that has the biggest value today. And so
then, next thing talking about goals is, how do you describe the goal, right? Here's a case where someone has described a goal. Look, there's a whole stack of papers. Every single report in here is wrong. That's providing a lot of detail around your goal. Another way you could describe that is say, every time I run report A after report B, report A is wrong, right? That's clarity. And when you're talking about goals, when you're defining goals or when someone's defining a goal to you, what you want is clarity and not detail, right? Clarity allows a team to understand the problem and then come up with the solution on their own. If say, Alex, as a leader of his team, is providing all kinds of detail to his team, he's training them to be dependent upon him. When they hit a situation that he didn't describe, then the natural reaction of that team is going to be, oh, okay, well, I guess we have to wait for Alex to come back and tell us what to do next.
So in a process, we developers are after clarity. So when I go and get the business guys from the previous slide to give me the story with the highest value, highest priority, I make sure that I have a full clarity. I want to see his pain. Show me what doesn't work, or show me what you want. And if there is no clarity, I go back and say, next one. I'm going to work with something that has clarity. Don't give me this whole spec with the detail. I want clarity of what you want working. What's not working, what's working. Defining that moment. For us, like usually I just nag him and said, do you have a failing test for this? If you don't, then get me a failing test and then we'll talk about it. But clarity, you need to focus. Developers need to be taught to be focused on clarity. If you have clarity, you can implement this. We have to be able to communicate and work this with the business guys and the QAs, and you all together. You're not smarter than them, or they're not smarter than you. You just got to work together. And clarity is key to pick up the smallest story that you can do today with the biggest value for the business.
So the last thing we're going to talk about when it comes to goals is, okay, so you've got this goal. How do you know whether you're moving in the right direction or not? How do you know whether you're actually succeeding or failing? And for that, we talk about signs of success, signs of failure. What that means is, a sign of success is, if I see this thing happening, then I know we're moving in the right track. I don't need any further detail. I don't need progress reports, status reports. Then I say, okay, if I see this, it's good. Here are some general ones. The second one, so sign of success, can a developer on the team explain their goal to me? Right? If they know what their goal is and if they can explain it to me, then that's great. I trust that they'll be able to help solve that problem. Sign of failure, similar, but if I see these things, then it means I do need to get involved. I do need to start drilling into the details. For example, a team changes its mind without any new information. Right? So if I ask someone, hey, what's your implementation? What are you doing? They give me one answer today, a different answer tomorrow. I'm like, okay, this team's not settled. We need to drill in.
And you need to define these for yourself. A lot of times a failure could be a sign of success. One of my favorite one is I work with someone new, we check in some code very bravely, and then every other place I worked, I would go like this and then hope next day I don't hear anything. where with us, I hope I hear something. So if I come in here next day and we have 25,000 tests and 240 are failing, that's a sign, that sounds like a failure, but it's a sign of success for me. That means we have test coverage. Well, to start, somebody has done something. So if they were green and now they're red, that means somebody is doing some kind of work. I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing something. But the key is, you have to define the signs of success. And these failures, these failing tests, to me, are signs of success that we have test coverage. And what this does is enables someone with a little less experience, a little less knowledge of the system to go in and bravely make change to the code. He knows that tomorrow, if he broke something existing, we will know about it and we'll fix it. And a famous thing that I say is that we release zero-bug software, which obviously that such thing doesn't exist. But that means is that we release 0 bugs of the ones that we already know, because everything we know it failed, we fixed. So all the tests are green. So these signs of success and failure are very important, and they need to be, you need to define them. And so you have a sign of success. What do? So I celebrate in a great way all the time, different ways all the time. In general, on a daily basis, what I do is, let's say we have some functionality, we're working on it, we wrote a test, it failed, we wrote the code that fixed it, got a green passing bar, and I'm like, all right, Jim, all right? So we shake hands. Next thing is refactor, we go back. So I do this all the time. I mean, people that know me, they know that. And what I do is I celebrate successes today, multiple times. What I want to do is I want to reward the people for their hard work, for my hard work. I want to see if he, likes working with me, if I like working with him. I don't wait 6 months or I don't wait for the yearly end review to tell you how you're doing. I'll let you know how you're doing today, and I hope you do the same thing to me. So celebrate the small victories.
All right, so just a few anti-patterns I want to drop out there because it's kind of a personal thing for me. If you hear someone say to you, or if you say to someone, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. Anyone? Certainly, I've said it, it's been said to me. Don't say that, right? What you're saying to that person is, don't talk to me. Right? I don't want to hear about your problems. Similarly, if you see someone, and I see this all the time with stand-ups, for some reason people get really emotional about how people do stand-ups. If you say, oh, you're doing that wrong, right? Well, if you say that, then you're doing it wrong, right? Don't say that. In both cases, what's happening is you're ignoring feedback. If these things happen to you, that's feedback there. You should explore that, not shut it down.
And take feedback, positive, negative. Take feedback. Another thing that happens all the time with me, because we have a huge code base. Someone will come in, and someone new, or will say, "Oh, this is spaghetti code," and some of it I wrote. So I'm like, well, yeah, this is old. Back 5 years ago, this made sense. Now it doesn't. What I do is I take this feedback and I take this person. We do our story to get this feature, this checkbox that needs to be working for business guys. Then I go back to this spaghetti code and I refactor it. And this guy now, I've taken his negative feedback. I didn't, bitch slap him for it. I just really showed him that I care to hear about something bad. So tell me what it is. Okay, let's work let's work with you to fix it. And I might not have the solution today or this moment, but take the feedback from the people that you work with and allow them to understand that any feedback is good. As long as you do something about it. Just don't ignore it.
All right, so let's recap where we are. We talked about communication. We talked about Satyr's interaction model, gave a couple tools and techniques that you can use for better communication.
And of course, the key is, in order for this communication and this whole good process to work, I suggest you all establish your own set of values, principles, and practices. Get your team together, write them down, copy ours, copy backs, do some other ones. Just come up with something and create this safe environment for developers and everybody on your team to just do a great job. Let them express their ideas and talk to you, and this is a great starting point.
And third thing was goals. Give your team goals. Have different time horizons. To think about how to describe the goal, how to know whether you're making progress on the goal. So one last thing. There is no substitute for teamwork and good leaders of teams to bring consistency of effort along with knowledge. This is Deming. The last thing we want to talk about is learning. One of the things that I guess it perhaps shouldn't surprise me anymore, but it's that as a technical person, people just immerse themselves in learning. You know, when you're a student, you get your first job, it's all about learning. You're learning a new programming language, you're learning a new team. You're really digging in and you know, kind of looking at every way that you can to learn and get better. And yet, frequently, I'm not going to say all the time, frequently, when someone becomes a team lead, they lose that, and they think that they just know. Okay, well, this is what I did to be successful, so everybody just do what I did, and we'll be successful. So the last thing, if you take nothing away from this except one thing, it's learning. It's keep reading, go to HackConf, you're here, good. You know, go to meetups, do other things, but invest in yourself. You know, don't stop investing in yourself. Just a little thing, when I first became an executive, you know, that was kind of one of the many times I had no idea what I was doing in my career, but I hired a coach. You know, there are people out there that will help you to get better at your job. Do these things or other things, but continue to invest in yourself. So lastly, we'll throw up, these are a couple of books that we referenced. Read them or read other books, doesn't matter, but keep reading, keep learning. Thank you. Thank you.
Check. Great talk. So yeah, this is why HackConf is entirely in English this season, because we want to enable great lectures like this to happen. One more time, thank you.